The real divide in America is not red state, blue state. The real divide is urban versus rural. And what you have in blue states is you have a larger urban population than a rural population. And what you have in red states typically is a larger rural population than an urban population. And when states flip from red to blue or from red to purple, as has happened in Arizona, for example, New Mexico, Michigan, looks like it's on the verge of happening in Georgia, and would have happened in Ohio were it not for all this gerrymandering, and several other states as well. What you see is that those states flip because the cities are growing faster than the rural areas. So what Republicans have been doing in red states is stripping the cities in those states of their political power. And in some cases of their ability to even vote, to have voters, show up. Harris County, Texas is probably the best example. 1 out of 6 Texas voters lives in Harris County, which is Houston. 1 out of 6 Texas voters. And the Republican Party the Republicans in the Texas legislature just passed a law allowing the Republican administration of Texas to take over all of the voting systems in Harris County. So that it's no longer run locally. It's now being run by partisan Republican hacks and Proud Boys. And you know what's going to happen in 2024. You're going to have, 10-hour lines to vote in Houston. You're going to have, lots and lots of ballot signature matches. You're going to have lots and lots of challenges to people's ID, et cetera, et cetera. They're going to do everything they can to keep those votes from counting and to keep people from voting in the first place. It's just that simple. But that is not the whole thing, right? There's only one Republican mayor among the nation's 20 most populous cities. And so attacking cities is like now a thing for the GOP. For example, in Nashville, Tennessee, local police there shot 2 black men to death. And so the local officials in the city of Nashville set up a police oversight board, and that board did an investigation, and they found, and this is pretty shocking, 96% of youths against whom officers had used force in schools were black. 96%. More than half of them were black girls. So the board suggested reforms, including de-escalation training for the police, but instead, the Republican state legislature in Tennessee got together and passed a law banning police oversight boards. And not just from Nashville, from any city in Tennessee. I told you about Harris County. Republicans in Texas have gone so far as to override ballot measures passed in Austin and Dallas to guarantee water breaks for construction workers. How did that happen? Well, what happened is Texas passed a law saying that the state could override city and county measures. And so much for home rule, right? So much for the people's voice. So the citizens of Austin and Dallas had passed a law or passed a rule or a regulation or whatever it may be in those cities, whatever they call it, that said that if you've got construction workers in our city, they have to at least have bathroom and beverage breaks regularly because they're working out in the hot sun. Well, the Republicans who run Texas didn't like that at all. Obviously the contractors didn't like it, and they own the Republicans. Harlan Crow and his buddies, I don't know if he had anything to do with this, but, one of the big developers in Texas. And so the Texas legislature passed a law saying, cities, you can't pass laws like this anymore. We are in charge here. We, the Republicans in the Texas legislature representing the rural people of Texas, are going to stick it to you, the cities. In Mississippi, you've got HB 1020. It's called the Jim Crow Law. It was signed by the governor of Mississippi in April. Jackson, Mississippi is the capital of Mississippi. It's also a majority black town. And Jackson, had a majority black police department and majority black court system. Well, the state legislature took over the city. And they put in in fact, the bill was sponsored by a white Republican legislator whose home district is 150 miles from Jackson. The Inquirer's headline said, Republicans taking over stuff run by black people because GOP hates democracy. Perfect. I mean, here you've got Democratic legislators being expelled from the legislatures of their states. We saw this in Tennessee with the Tennessee Three. The Nashville Airport Board even attempting to cut the city council size in half in retaliation for a perceived snub. As Bloomberg writes, at one point this year, encroachment even reached the level of street names when two Republican lawmakers started an effort to rechristen a city street named for the late Democratic civil rights icon, Representative John Lewis, as President Donald Trump Boulevard. Cities, red states don't want cities. They hate cities because cities tend to vote Democratic. Meanwhile, and this is amazing news, my state here, Oregon, and the city of New York's pension fund have gotten together and sued Fox News. Now, the New York City has 857,000 shares of Fox stock. It's worth $28 million. And the state of Oregon is sitting on 226,000 shares of Fox stock, valued at about $5 million. And so this lawsuit, the basis of this lawsuit, which could cost Fox a fortune, is that the management and leadership of Fox did not exercise good judgment with regard to the 2020 election by promulgating lies about election interference, election theft, stolen election, quack, 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 all this stuff. And that those lies hurt Fox. This is a shareholder lawsuit. It's saying, we didn't get the dividend this year we should have gotten because you guys had to pay $700 million to a voting machine company. And you've got another one. Smartmatic is coming, on the back of Dominion. Smartmatic is coming along saying, we're going to sue, for $2.5 billion. On top of that, you got sexual harassment lawsuits and other kinds of lawsuits going on with Fox. But these two big ones, they actually cost the stockholders. Because if Fox has to pay these big settlements, and not to mention legal fees, there's not money left over to pay shareholders dividends. So now we've got the City of New York pension fund and the state of Oregon suing. It was filed in Delaware Court of Chancery and named Fox Corporation board members and executives as defendants. Dominion earlier this year got $787 million, and Smartmatic is asking for $2.7. Brad Lander, the New York City comptroller, said in a statement on Tuesday, quote, Fox's board of directors has blatantly disregarded the need for journalistic standards and failed to put safeguards in place despite having a business model that invites defamation litigation. A lack of journalistic standards and a proper strategy to mitigate defamation has clearly harmed Fox's reputation and threatens their bottom line and long-term profitability. He goes on to say the board of Fox Corporation took a massive risk in pursuing, this is the Attorney General of Oregon, who said the board of Fox Corporation took a massive risk in pursuing profits by perpetuating and peddling known falsehoods. That's Ellen Rosenblum, who is our AG here. She said the directors' choices exposed themselves and the company to liabilities and exposed their shareholders to significant risks. That is the crux of our lawsuit, and we look forward to making our case in court.